How much do you think you need to spend on a watch to be taken seriously? We're going to talk about all of that today and everything that's wrong with social media watch gurus. It is 5:47 p.m. Let's get down to business. Real quick, guys, I've partnered with Wolf Watch Club to give away a Tudor Black Bay 54 with that Tiffany blue dial and that polished bezel. And then at the end of October, they are giving away a Rolex Batgirl. That's that GMT Master 2, black and blue on a Jubilee. You don't want to miss out. Click the link in the description below and take advantage of this. Okay, guys, I guess when it comes to social media watch people, like, you would have to lump me in with the bunch, right? I make watch content on social media, but I think I'm a little different, okay? First of all, I'm almost never wrong, but also I understand that everyone has their opinions, has their likes, has their dislikes, and you should be able to express all of that. I also think that there's no true amount of money you need to spend to be taken seriously in any sector of life, but clearly not everybody agrees with that, and we're going to watch a clip right now, and you're probably familiar with these people, but the person I want you to focus on is Trax NYC. He's a fairly controversial New York jeweler, and of course he says things and does things to be hyperbolic, but this clip today, as heavily edited as it is pretty infuriating because I think it's the antithesis of true hobbyism and like true enthusiasm when it comes to a hobby like horology.
It's the best watch for someone to buy. Rolex is new money, but Audemars and Patek is the one that they're gonna know.
Okay, so first off, he says Rolex is new money, but AP and Patek are the ones they're gonna know. Now, again, this is a heavily edited Instagram reel, so I don't really know who he means by they, like who they are going to know. But I guess you could make the argument that Rolex is fairly new money. That is, if you're new to having money, the first watch you might spend your money on might be a Rolex, right? Because Rolex has the largest brand equity and everybody thinks of Rolex when they think nice watch. So if you're new to getting some money, you might pull the trigger on a Rolex before you look at other watches. However, I think you could also make the solid argument that Patek Philippe, maybe not, but like AP and Richard Mille are very much new money. You never see old dudes at a country club rocking a Richard Mille. But you do see a lot of really cool old school Rolexes on their wrists, and they're very much old money. But you know who does wear a lot of Richard Milles and a lot of AP Royal Oaks? People that just got money yesterday. I'm talking about rappers. I'm talking about people in the music industry that just got a record deal, and instead of blowing their budget on things that they should, like marketing and managing an album release, they spend it all on a Hellcat and a Richard Mille or an AP Royal Oak, and they get them flooded. That means getting all the diamonds and all the bedazzled, disgusting BS. When I think old dude, a ton of wealth, maybe like a studio exec, I don't think Richard Mille or AP Royal Oak. I do think, Rolex president. And yes, I do also think maybe some really expensive Pateks.
What if you're on a budget? The used two-tone Datejust, but you're talking about something from the 90s. $5,000 watch is basically you saying all I got is $5,000.
That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Okay, so the host says, what if you're on a budget? So first of all, he asks this guy about budget watches, and immediately he picks a $5,000 figure. That's insane. If you followed this channel for any length of time at all, you would know that budget probably sits around, the sub $500 mark. And there's a whole lot of cool watches that I've reviewed here on this channel that fall within that category. That statement alone says more about him than it does about the watch world as a whole. Unfortunately, the majority of people that will have seen this clip aren't really watch hobbyists, so they're going to just believe what this guy says and buy into this kind of old trope that you gotta spend a ton of money on a watch for it to be nice. You and I know that's not the truth. Now, the fact that he says if you're wearing a $5,000 watch, it just looks like all you got is $5,000. That alone is also idiotic. Okay? There are watches in the $5,000 category that would smoke a Rolex and an AP and a Patek. I'm talking about things like Grand Seiko. And yes, I know the Zaratsu finishing, it's insane, it's blah, blah, blah. That itself has become kind of cringy and cliche. But the truth is, Grand Seiko's finishing is pretty second to none, right? There are things like Spring Drive, Patek, AP, Rolex. They don't have anything like that. I see a Grand Seiko on someone's wrist, and as someone who, I consider myself a watch enthusiast, a watch hobbyist, I would take that dude, quote, more seriously in the watch world than I would some dude wearing an AP Royal Oak. What I mean to say is, I think the more, under the radar watches are the ones most legit watch collectors wear. Things like a Royal Oak or a Richard Mille, things like that, that's very mainstream at this point. But I get it. This dude cares about being popular on social media, so he's going to try and fulfill that social media hype. He wants to continue making things mainstream. He doesn't want to talk about the under the radar enthusiast pieces. But he says something else that is just the dumbest thing ever right now.
Once you get out of the 10s and you 10 to 15, that's when you're actually a watch connoisseur.
Okay, so apparently, according to him, to be a real watch connoisseur, you have to spend a lot of money on watches. All right, I'm gonna tell you something right now. I can't afford a Ferrari F40, right? I can't afford a Porsche 959. Those two cars were developed to compete against each other. There's a lot of cars I would absolutely love to own that I absolutely cannot and probably will not ever own. Just because I didn't cough up the money to get a Porsche 959 or a Porsche RS America, does that make me less of a car enthusiast? Does that mean I know less than someone that can afford that car simply because I haven't spent the money on it? That's really, really stupid. There's dudes, right, in my comment section every day that don't and will never have interest in owning a $10,000 or $15,000 watch that probably know more about watches than me and him combined. It is what it is. The amount of money you spend on something does not equate or is relevant at all to how much you know about said thing or hobby. It's just, it's insane. I've been fortunate enough to own some Rolexes. I have a vintage precious metal Vacheron that's worth a pretty penny. I have a precious metal Reverso that's worth a pretty penny. I own the first Grand Seiko ever. It's worth a pretty penny. I have some pretty expensive watches. But just because I own those watches doesn't make me know more than another person who really just is infatuated by G-Shocks. There's probably some Casio enthusiasts that are also incredibly knowledgeable about the watch world as a whole that just want to stick with owning fairly affordable pieces, and that's perfectly fine. And here is the crux of the issue. What is affordable to me is different than what's affordable to you watching this at home or these guys on this podcast that we're reacting to. What you can spend and what you are willing to spend is different depending on the person, right? And your knowledge of said hobby is irrelevant to your spending ability or your spending habits. And I think this attitude is very damaging and very stupid because, as I said, there are watches that aren't super duper conventionally expensive that are insane, legit watches. And I don't want you people at home to listen to the garbage that is out there from people like this and make you feel lesser than, because you're not lesser than, okay? I think this is stupid. I think it's mean. I think I mean, his opinion, and he has the right to pop off and say whatever he wants, but I have the right to react to it, and I'm letting you know, just because you can't afford the really expensive watches, or just because you're not interested in buying the really expensive, fancy schmancy watches, doesn't mean you're less of a watch collector, doesn't mean you're less of a watch enthusiast, and it doesn't mean you don't know that much, because there are arguments to be made on all sides. But just him saying Rolex is new money and AP is the real deal, dude. Okay, I live in Los Angeles. I've rubbed elbows with some pretty important, wealthy people around here, and all of them wear Rolex. Okay, all of them. I haven't seen a single Patek or AP or iced out Richard Mille on these old dudes' wrists. Okay, they're not interested in that. So you could definitely make the argument that those really expensive watches are super mainstream and super new money, because the only people buying them are people that just got rich. But what do I know? So, yeah. Anyway, don't let this stupid BS get you down. I will catch you on the next one. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay blessed. I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller. Check out wolfwatchclub.com, and you could win a Tudor Black Bay or a Rolex GMT Master 2 Batgirl. All right, guys. I didn't invent time. I just tell it. Love ya.